All right, we're live back again this week with another episode of SCMP Live Chat / Q&A. And man, this week we got a good one because we have the Anzac takeover. We got Australia covered. We got New Zealand. Both guys have been guests on the show in the past, but today is the first day we get them together. So it's like a dynamic duo from two different countries, man, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. I don't know, man, being on this side of the world, I have a special connection to Australia and New Zealand. I feel like we're all together, for some, I don't know, for some odd reason, you know what I mean? Like Asia and Australia and New Zealand, Oceania, right?
That's
The
it.
Pacific. It's just like it's all of us, man, all of us together. So yeah, and plus I've been covering the fighters out of New Zealand and Australia for quite a bit now. And yeah, man, I love talking to everybody out there. Everybody has good vibes, and both you guys have good vibes. So, but you know what? I would like to start off a positive note, but we can't, man. We got to start off with something that is very tragic that's happened recently with Fau Vake in Auckland. He was attacked in the early morning, something like that. Was it like 4 a.m., something like that? Let's start with you, Chris, since you are on ground zero. You're covering this. Give us the information that we need to know so the people don't get it misunderstood.
Yeah, so Fau was out in town early Sunday morning, about, like you say, about 4 a.m., 3 a.m.-ish, waiting for a taxi, and a group of 4 guys just beat him up. I'm not sure what the backstory was to any of that happening, but as far as I know, he didn't do anything to instigate, being beaten up by a group of 4 guys. And the bad part about this is they got him from behind. Like I said, he was waiting for a taxi, obviously not expecting it. And that's one thing that New Zealand and I know Australia, they have issues with this too. King hits, coward punches, coming up from behind, getting a guy while he's defenseless. And you can do some serious damage hitting someone at the back of the head. And as we've seen, like Fau Vake is now fighting for his life in hospital. Still in the fight, which is really good news. But yeah, we're just kind of hoping for a miracle down here.
Yeah, man, everybody is hoping for it, man. He has a huge support system down there, and with this king hit coward punch thing, it's in the West, I believe they call it sucker punch, but it's not like a thing that you would see on the news. You know what I mean? It's just a thing that you would hear from time to time. So Ryan, in Australia, do you remember like the first time you heard of this, like an attack like this happening?
I remember the first time when they introduced the laws to they gave it a more severe penalty for if someone was to cow punch someone else. I think the minimum was 10 years, and someone was killed. They were fatally punched in the back of the head out clubbing. I think they were both intoxicated, both guys, and one guy yocked the other guy in the back of the head. The dude died, and he got 10 years in jail. I think that was like 2014 or something. I remember that. But it makes sense to me, right? I think that New Zealand need to bring in these penalties to stop people feeling like they can get away with this. Because I'm not sure how the law works there right now, but I assume that's still just like an assault charge. If he doesn't die, which hopefully he doesn't, because I hope he has a full recovery, would that just be an assault charge? How's that work?
Yeah, so the charges that I believe have been laid are pretty much just assault charges, assault with intent to injure sort of thing for all 4 guys. So it's obviously nowhere near the penalty that you guys have or what should be in place for this kind of thing. Because like you guys, I'm pretty sure we've had a few pretty severe cases in fairly recent years too. So, I mean, this isn't the first time it's happened, and surely won't be the last. So They really do need to stamp it out in some way down here.
It does happen quite often. Like I've seen it. Like it doesn't get covered every time it happens, because if people aren't severely injured or something, they're not going to cover it, right? But people going out and cow punching people, it's a common thing, right? I'm sure it's common all over the world. So for New Zealand to not have a law that stipulates that if you do that, you can get charged more severely than if you just punch someone in the face, like, because it's a different crime entirely. It seems in the case of Fau Vake, I feel like his name is. I hope I said that right. It feels like it was an unprovoked thing. I don't know. Obviously, I wasn't there. But if 4 dudes are coming from behind and getting him, I can't imagine he was the one provoking the action in that occasion. So I feel like there should be a harsher penalty. Hopefully, New Zealand does something about that in the future and brings something in. But it's just a shame to see it happen now.
Well, assault is assault, right? Like if you punch him in the face, if you punch him in the ear, if you punch him in the back of the head. But the one thing about this is you're punching somebody in the back of the head, and you know what can happen if you punch somebody in the back of the head. Like there's a reason why this is going on, right? It's because somebody is out there trying to really injure somebody badly. So I don't think that it should be an assault charge if he survives. I think it should be an attempted, it could be, I don't know, but maybe attempted murder charge, right? Because because it's been in the news, it's been happening a lot of times, people have died from it, so it's not like you're an idiot and you don't know what's going on, right? If you live in those countries. So I saw that Kai and some of the other fighters, right, at City Kickboxing, they've been spreading a petition to make harsher penalties, right? I feel like if you're watching this, and just go on their page, man, and click on it and sign it. Do you have to live in New Zealand to sign it? I think anybody could sign that petition, right?
I'm sure anyone can sign it.
Yeah, so go in there and sign it, man. The more people that sign it, the better for this to push through. And what have you heard, Chris? Have you heard anything from the government side on this issue?
Nope.
Oh,
nothing.
My God. But when Israel Adesanya makes a tweet, the government wants to get involved. Is that what it is?
Yeah, something like that. That's how it works down here. Is he's a big fish in a small pond, and everyone sees when he opens his mouth.
Wow, man, that is crazy, man. I don't understand like why they would focus on that, but something that's such a big issue in the community right now, and a guy that's fighting for his life. I believe he's on life support. And that is a serious situation, right? It's not like he's just laying in the bed like in a movie. You know what I mean? Like in the movie, they make it all like, oh, he's in a coma. He's just laying in the bed sleeping. Yeah. This guy it's serious, man. Like, and I saw that he has a 3-year-old daughter. She's there at the hospital too, waiting for her father to wake up, man. And I have a daughter. She's 10 years old, man. I could only imagine what his daughter is going through, man, and just the family and the team, man. It's just, man, it's a terrible situation, and they do need to do something about it. Someone's asking about the context of this. We just explain it, just rewind it like 5 minutes, and Chris goes over it. You know exactly what's happened. If you Google Fau Vake, Fau Vake, Vake, and you'll see it on Google. Exactly what happened. It's terrible, man. And I don't know, man. Why did it become a thing though? That's another question I have. It's like, when you said 2014 is the first time you remember it, right? What about you, Chris? Yeah. When did it become a thing?
I don't really know when. Like, I'd remember the first well-publicized case. Like, it's just one of those things that you kind of know happens, but I know down here, like, they're not reported that often. So, like, unless someone is severely injured, like in this case, Fau obviously was, you're not going to hear about it.
Yeah, it's just, man. I hope they do something about it, and the more his team goes out there and speaks on it, and social media spread it, retweet it, and all that, and hopefully the government picks it up and does something about it. So the guys are arrested. They're like in jail, the attackers.
Yeah, I know they've been charged. I don't know if they've been like put in jail on holding or anything like that. They've been in court, so I think that process is still ongoing.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So they need to throw the book at these guys, right? It's, sometimes you just gotta make an example of. In this situation, you do need to make an example of somebody.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, there's life and death situation here. It's not like you sold like drugs to an undercover cop, right? That just happens all the time. You know what I mean? It's just like whatever, right? You sold some marijuana to the guy, right? Whatever you did. You know what I mean? This is like someone's gonna die, possibly die in this situation. So, and in the future too, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know what's happening, because kids see this and they're like, oh man, I'm a thug. I'm gonna be in the street. I'm gonna, punch someone. It's like it's for real. Like, it is like the most cowardly thing you could do in the street, right? You don't even
Yeah.
go face to face with somebody. You want to sneak up behind them and punch them in the back of the head. It's like, man, I think I saw this stateside too, where somebody was doing it to like old people. Like he was doing it to like elderly people. And I was like,
That's pretty
man,
bad.
that is crazy,
Ugh.
dude. And I think they threw the book at those kids too, man. And you need to, man. You know, I know kids can get rehabilitated, but man, this is just so the intent is to really injure or, you know, and it can be fatal. We need to fix some of that. Anyways, you know, hopefully, you know, he comes out of it, you know, gets healthy and he could speak on it, right? And he could become a huge figure in you know, quelling this in the country, right? So
Yeah,
hopefully it doesn't
absolutely.
happen. What is it? You know, have you talked to it with like, is it big news even in Australia, Ryan? Is it something that people know about?
Nah, I only really see it on the MMA sites, to be honest, and obviously City Kickboxing's Twitter channels and stuff like that, and their fighters. But it hasn't been on the news here. Not that I've seen anyway. Maybe it has. I don't want to speak for all the news channels, but I definitely haven't seen it on any of my like friends' Facebooks that don't have anything to do with MMA and stuff like that. So it's clearly not a big thing outside the MMA community, which is a shame because it's a bad issue. But I'm sure it's different in New Zealand, right? Maybe in New Zealand there's a bit more coverage on it.
Yeah, it's everywhere down here. It's everywhere. Like I said before, with Israel being such a big fish in this little pond, anything City Kickboxing do or get behind, it's going to make the news. And so they've been very, very, very vocal on this. Eugene kind of went the same line as John, saying, you know, coming up and whacking someone from behind in the back of the head it seems like attempted murder. Justin Tuffer said something very similar the other day during his media session. So yeah, it's all over the place here, and Eugene's been doing a lot of media appearances. So it's good that they're getting it out there, but it's just horrible that these are the circumstances that this has sort of brought it to light.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Fix it. We need to fix it, and I'll continue talking about it on this show if anything happens, you know, moving forward. And yeah, Eugene, everybody needs to, you know, speak up about it, and even, you know, people outside of the country, you know what I mean? Because I'm pretty sure it's happening all over the world. It's just not publicized like it is right now over there in New Zealand. Now, last weekend, man, UFC 262. Was that last weekend? Yeah, last weekend, right? UFC 262.
Yeah.
We got a question here from Alex Box Uno. He says, what if any other fight finish you reminded of when Burgos got delayed KO'd, or is it the first time you guys seen something like this? Now, in my recollection, I have one of the worst memories of all time, right? I think I smoked too much weed growing up and my memory is just shot, right? But anyways, but I don't really remember any kind of KO like that. Only KO that I remember like that will be just shots to the body. You know, that's
Yeah,
it.
same
Where
here.
the body just shut down and they kind of like, you know, kind of like scattered backwards and like hit the fence and dropped, right? I think a very similar one, but it was a shot to the body, was Matt Brown when he got hit by a kick. Was that Cowboy? I don't remember exactly, but Matt Brown, he gets dropped a lot when he gets hit to the body. We've seen it many times from him, and that's the only one that I really remember. But I remember there has been other fighters that got hit to the body and dropped similarly. But the thing that was scary about Shane Burgos was he dropped, and then when he hit the fence, he seemed like he was out, like knocked out completely, right? And then Barboza came in and hit him 2 more times. And you saw Dana White stand up, and he actually looked concerned in the background. I was like, so, you know, you never see Dana White really do that. You only see Dana White react when there's like some crazy KO, and he's all like, damn, right? But other than that, you know what I mean? You don't really see him stand up and look at the fighter in the cage, but he was very concerned, and so were we, you know what I mean? So do you guys remember? Let's start with you, Ryan. Do you remember anything like that?
Definitely don't remember seeing anything like that. Obviously, you've seen knockouts in the past where the person's kind of tried to keep composure and then eventually just have been backed up and finished. But I've never seen anything where he tried to keep composure and then his body just shut off on him. And like you said, he like almost face planted on the cage. So it was a worrying one. Yeah, it was weird to hear what he was saying about it because he reckons he was fully there. He reckons he could. I can't remember who he was talking to. Maybe Ariel or Brett Okamoto, one of the two. He was saying that he was fully like he could see everything, he could feel what was happening, but he couldn't stop himself from like his body just shut down. It's just weird that he was there and he could recall everything. He didn't forget any of it because it did look like he went out. And those follow-up shots, they were necessary because if you're Barboza, what are you going to do? But I can't imagine they helped the situation at all.
Yeah, and Chris, how tough is Burgos to just after he gets hit? He's so tough that his body delayed the shutdown. You know what I mean? Like
we all knew he was tough, and that's why a lot of people were looking forward to this fight because he's shown he can take a lot of punishment. But I don't know if you guys saw the video that Dr. Dave put out afterwards, sort of explaining what he thought happened. But I mean, you watch that and you're just like, so he literally almost willed himself to keep fighting, even though his brain was saying he was unconscious. Like that is just some next level shit. I don't think that's particularly healthy for him. But man, like in terms of showing your strength, that's just elite.
Yeah, you can't train that. There's no way you can train like that level of toughness. And you know, I've spoken to Shane Burgos many times. This dude is one of the best dudes to talk to. He knows what type of fighter he is. He knows that he goes out there, he's out there to bang, and he's out there to knock you out, and it's kill or be killed, right? So we've seen that in the last couple of fights. But the thing is, he's lost a few in a row now. You know what I mean? But it's to the top guys. It's just he's lost a few in a row. When you lose a few in a row, people start to point fingers. People start to, you know, pinpoint like, oh, why is this guy losing so many fights? But you know, I don't know, man. I still sometimes you still have to wait on guys. We've seen it in the main event, man. Like Charles Oliveira is a perfect example of you cannot jump off the train so quick just because a guy lost twice, you know what I mean, or 3 times or whatever. Because Oliveira had a knockout like that actually against Max Holloway. Do you remember that fight?
No,
you guys don't remember Max Holloway?
I'm like you. I got a terrible memory, man. I'll go watch it after this.
Okay, now I remember Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira had some kind of weird delayed, like he got hit and then it didn't look like he was like knocked out, and then he just collapsed like a couple seconds afterwards. And then Max won the fight. It was like one of the weirdest main events. I think it was in Canada somewhere, a fight night. But yeah, man, it just shows you like you can't jump off the train. But where does Shane Burgos go from here, though? You know what I mean? Like, I'm interested to see what kind of fight he gets. He's still ranked, you know what I mean? And Barboza was ranked. He'll probably come out what? Let me see the ranking. Let me pull up the rankings right here, right now.
It's around 12 or something.
You think he's around 12? All right, let's see. Yeah, he's 13. He dropped 4 spots. Barboza, you know, goes up 4 spots. Barboza's at number 9. Burgos is at number 4. You know, who does Burgos fight? You know, I think, you know, if they're gonna match him up with somebody, they're gonna have to match him up with somebody, let's say in, you know, 11 through 15, or maybe somebody on the verge of the top 10. Alex is recommending Bryce Mitchell. Would you do that, Ryan?
Yeah, I like that fight. I don't think it's probably a good thing for Burgos because you kind of want to give him a tune-up fight, as I will say, for lack of a better term. I don't think give him someone that's like Bryce Mitchell, who we know what he's going to do. He's going to try and take him down and just dominate him with his grappling. I just think Burgos is too fun a fight on the feet. I think there's so many other fights that would make more sense as a fan's perspective. Maybe someone like Andre Feely or something. Someone who's going to stand with him, you know. That'll be a fun one. Or if you're going to do something like this, like the Bryce Mitchell fight, maybe Ryan Hall's another name you could throw in there because he needs to get a fight. I just think give him a grappler, it's just wasted potential in terms of you could throw him against anyone who's a striker and put it as a co-main event on a fight night or something. It's going to sell. It's going to be a fun fight. But if you give him one of these elite grapplers, there's a chance that the fight could just be pretty boring. But hey, I love my grappling, so I'd still watch it. But, you know, that's what I think.
Chris, what do you do? What do you do with Burgos? You know, I mean, do you put him against a grappler and Ryan makes some damn good points about the matchmaking, right? It's like, do you want to do that? Is that what you want? I don't even think Burgos would want that, even if the guy was ranked number 5.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because it's sort of like, well, what do the UFC see in Burgos, and what do they sort of want to do with him to, I guess, build him back up, or just have him sort of lurk around that gatekeeper sort of area? I'm a bit the same. I don't want to see him versus a grappler because I think that's just wasting Shane Burgos in a fight that might not be as exciting as a Shane Burgos fight can be. Someone like Andre Fili would be a nice fight. Cub Swanson, even, that could be a good one. Lando Venata, he looked extremely good at featherweight recently. That was same card, I think. So yeah, there's a lot of good stand-up fights there. It'll really just depend on if he wants a ranked opponent, because then maybe you're just looking at Hakeem Dawodu. Is probably the best option there.
Yeah, he was lined up to fight Hakeem last year, and then that fell through, and he got this Barboza fight. But I feel like Hakeem is booked for somebody else right now. But yeah, that's a good matchup. That's a good stylistically, that's a great matchup. Andre Fili is good. Charles Jourdain would be a good matchup, but Charles Jourdain looks like he's booked for the London card. I saw on his Facebook that he signed the fight, and I know who it is, but I can't say anything, because I got signed. Like they're like, don't tell anybody. I was like, all right, man, it's all good.
Yeah, we'll leave that for the ESPNs of the world to break, and then you can just be
exactly. He fought Cub Swanson in 2019. He beat him by split decision, but still, I would like to see the rematch. I think that would be a rematch that you would, because it's a split decision. That's a good matchup, And
any split decisions, I'm like, all right, let's do a second one. Why not?
Exactly. So any matchup, Burgos versus the Korean Superboy. Korean Superboy is looking to come back in the summer, so that's a good matchup. Yeah, man, I think I like that one. That would be a good fight for Burgos to come back after losing back to back, and Superboy, he comes with it, and those dudes will stand and bang. So we'll see. Now, what do you do with Edson Barboza, Chris? Man, there's so many options, right? Edson Barboza out there calling out everybody. You know what I mean? Like, what do you do with him?
Man, like you said, he's calling out everyone. I like Barboza versus Rodriguez, Barboza versus Calvin Kattar, Barboza versus Max Holloway. I mean, you can just make any of these fights and put them on a main event. Everyone will watch these fights. Everyone seems to love Edson Barboza, and for very good reason. He's always exciting. So basically just book him. I don't care who he's against. I'm going to tune in. So
yeah, for sure. And Ryan, with Barboza, he tried to climb the ranks to fight for the title at lightweight. It never happened. Looks like he's going to have a very good chance of climbing up the featherweight ranks and getting a title shot. Do you rush him, since he's had a lot of fights, man, and he's not getting any younger? Do you rush him into like a Yair Rodriguez fight or a Max Holloway fight? Because those would be title eliminators right there.
I think you do, 100%. It's going to be a fun fight either way. He's shown at featherweight that he's a top contender. I mean, Dan Ige, he lost to Calvin Kattar, and then he came back and looked pretty good in the return, if I'm correct. And I thought he beat Ige. So just with that, you got to imagine Barboza's like borderline top 5, right? Where was Ige ranked right now? I feel like he's pretty high in the rankings. You could pass him. He's 8. Okay, so you could give him a jump on that and give him one of the top 5 guys. Fine, in my opinion. I think a Max Holloway fight is awesome. Probably take Max in it, but I think it'd be a really fun fight. Yair's a really fun stylistic matchup. Zabit, if he decides to come back ever, that would be another fun one. And because he's out of the rankings, you could really book that. And it wouldn't be weird because he's not ranked at the moment for some ridiculous reason. I guess he doesn't want to fight, whatever. I think for Barboza, he can go straight into a top contender fight. If he wins against Holloway, if they book that one, you give him a title shot. If he loses that one, that's fine. We've seen him before at lightweight. He hangs around. He's still a top contender. I mean, even at lightweight, when was the last time that he lost to someone that wasn't a top 10 guy? I can't remember if he's ever lost to someone that wasn't a top 10 guy at lightweight. I mean, he beat Dan Hooker, put a beating on him. He had that fight with Paul Felder. Look, I think he's a top contender. Rush him to a title shot. I'm all fine with that.
Yeah, I don't think if you go look back at his track record, he's lost to Ige, which was a split, and then Felder a split. He got KO'd by Gaethje. A cut stopped the fight against Kevin Lee, and then he lost to Khabib. He was mauled, and he got submitted by Ferguson, Michael Johnson, Donald. Man, it's like the names. This dude has a Hall of Fame career, man. It's like Charles Oliveira, right? It's just that's the type of career he's had at Barboza. You know, I'm hearing that Max Holloway is in training camp right now. This is what I'm hearing, little whispers. So he must have a fight coming up. I'm
Who do you
thinking
think that'll be?
maybe it's Yair. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to fight Yair and it's a fire matchup, I think it would be right now. He's going to return from suspension. Or maybe he's going to go up to lightweight and fight somebody. I can see that happening because it doesn't, you know, if he goes up in lightweight and fights, he wins, great. If he loses, it doesn't really do nothing to his stock in featherweight. That's what's great about moving up a weight class and fighting. It doesn't affect you at your weight class, right? Or should it? Should it, Chris? Should it affect you if you go up weight and lose?
No, of course not. You're having to go up and fight bigger guys, heavier guys. Like, it's another challenge, sure, but it doesn't have anything to do with your regular weight class. So it's like with Adesanya recently fighting Jan Blachowicz. Like, there's upper weight class, he lost, but hey, there's good experience, and then just go back and keep doing your thing at your regular weight. Like, we've seen Max Holloway fight at lightweight before. Obviously, that absolute banger against Dustin Poirier a few years ago. He lost that one. That, if anything, improved his stocks with a lot of people because that was one hell of a fight. So, yeah, why not go up to lightweight if he's waiting around for a title shot? And obviously, you got Ortega and Volkanovski to play out. Like, surely there's a fight at lightweight that intrigues him. And I mean, you could fight one of the top 10 guys. If Max Holloway wins that, they could look at booking him against Charles Oliveira. Like, they know the stocks that Max brings to the company, so that fight's probably not that far away if he can get a win in the lightweight division.
Yeah, it's a Max Holloway. Let's just say he's in a very good spot, you know, at lightweight, at featherweight, because like you said, lightweight, if he goes up there, he beats one of the top contenders, then he automatically lines up to fight Charles Oliveira. Why? Because he already beat Charles Oliveira, right? Like, when you hold a win over somebody, especially a knockout win, I think Oliveira would probably want that fight back, right? You know, speaking of like moving up and down weight classes, Oliveira, he wins the title, right? Incredible performance, right? He looked better than ever. He recovered really well after that first round beatdown. And then, and went in the second round and knocked him out, right? Something that I feel like a lot of people didn't expect. They didn't expect Oliveira to knock out Chandler, but he did. He surprised everybody. And then after the fight, he's talking about he wants to go back down to featherweight and fight Volkanovski. Ryan, we got to talk about this, man. Like, why would you be calling out the featherweight champ when you're the lightweight champ? Does that make any sense to you?
Well, I mean, he's been talking about going down to featherweight after every single one of his fights at lightweight. I just don't understand why this man wants to do that. I don't think it's a good move. I think he looks drained at featherweight. Even though he can probably make the weight, I don't think that's an issue. I know he missed a couple of times, but I'm sure he could, with a diet, make the weight. He's just not going to perform as well as he has been at lightweight. And when you're the best at lightweight, why do you want to go down to featherweight? And look, I don't think it's going to be an easy out for anyone to beat Volkanovski, let alone someone who historically in the weight class wasn't one of the top 5 contenders, right? So if I'm Charles Oliveira, I'm sticking at lightweight, at least for a couple more fights. You defend the belt there 3 times, 4 times, then you can take the chance and go down and see how you fare again.
I'm never a guy that's thinking like, okay, I'm the title holder and I'm going to drop down in weight to challenge the champ. That doesn't, you know, in MMA minds, it doesn't make sense to do that, right? Losing an extra 10 pounds. You want to go up a weight class. Why? Because if you lose, like we just said, Chris, like you said, it doesn't really do nothing to your stock, right? You can just go back down to your weight class and fight and defend the title, right? If you drop down and lose, that diminishes the value of the lightweight title, does it not, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you're losing to a smaller guy. A lot of people would be a little bit curious as to why Oliveira would even want to do that. Like Ryan was saying, it just seems kind of silly at this point. Like, at least defend the lightweight title a couple times before you start talking about doing that. Because once you've defended it a few times, then you can kind of call your shots a little bit more. But yeah, moving down is an interesting one. It's an interesting one.
Chris, what do
Maybe
you do
he
with
sees
Michael
it as
Chandler?
more.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje, absolutely.
You think so? You don't think Justin
I think
Gaethje
so.
gets a title shot?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if he did. I just want to see Gaethje and Chandler throw down. I mean, I
Yeah,
think
of
a lot of people are probably in that category where, you know, Gaethje's done everything he needs to get that next title shot, and the Chandler fight's just fun. Like, they're both coming off losses in the title fights, so yeah, I think book that. And maybe if you're looking to turn around Oliveira quickly, you throw a guy like maybe Beneil Dariush in there, who's obviously got a pretty good winning streak behind him now and has really established himself. He's another one like Charles Oliveira, who's kind of in the last few years just really found himself and made a real surprise run. And yeah, it's great to see Benny D doing what he's doing.
Yeah, it's great. You know, Chandler, he has so many fights because he just skyrocketed, right? 2 fights in, he's fighting for the title. So it's just the start for him, man. I don't think, you know, he's washed. I don't think none of that. I think he's gonna be back fighting for the title eventually within the next 2 years. You know what I mean? He's gonna win a few, he's gonna lose a few. He even said, you know, when he started his run, he says, I'm gonna win a few, I'm gonna lose a few, but I'm gonna have great fights and I'm gonna be the champion, right? So I believe him, man. I believe he's gonna do that. Chandler, he has so many options, you know what I mean? Ferguson, man, does he have so many options though? Ryan, what's his options? He's talking about he's not done, you know what I mean? He's just a little speed bump in the road. What do you do with him?
Well, first I want to say, people calling for his retirement are insane. Look at someone like Nate Diaz. That guy has not been like a top contender in 6 years. Maybe he beat McGregor, but that's it, right? And he beat McGregor at welterweight. Even if he beat him lightweight, I wouldn't put too much stock in it. Look, Tony Ferguson can keep fighting. I think that's a very fun fight, and I said it from after he lost to Charles Oliveira. Book him against one of the Diaz brothers. It's going to sell. It's going to be a really fun fight. And yeah, everyone's going to tune in. It's the same thing as what I just said with Shane Burgos. You're not going to give him a guy that's going to wrestle him. We've seen his takedown defense doesn't hold up in his age of 38 or whatever. And look, I don't want to see another fight where he gets held down for 3 rounds. I'd rather see a fight like the Gaethje fight where he gets beat up on the feet. If he's going to lose, I'd rather it be that way. So give him someone who's a legacy fighter right now. Carlos Condit's a good one. The Diaz brothers are both good ones. A Cowboy rematch, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense, but I've seen people calling for it, so maybe something like that. Yeah, there's too many fun fights to tell him to retire now. Lawler's another good one. I just read that one there. That's a fun fight. But yeah, he needs to move up, in my opinion, just because there's more legacy fights there. At 155, it's Murderer's Row, and you're not going to really have much to pick from there.
170 does have a lot of interesting matchups for Tony Ferguson. You know, Robbie Lawler is one. Nate Diaz is another, like you said. So many. But Ferguson, man, he does need to revamp something, though. You know, remember ahead of this fight against Dariush, he was saying that he fired everybody, right? And he just brought everybody new in, and he had Freddie Roach. And once I heard he had Freddie Roach, I was like, okay, you got to bet against him, because Freddie Roach doesn't help really anybody, right? He's a boxing trainer trying to help an MMA guy. It's 2 totally different sports, man. Like, I've spoken to so many coaches, and working with a boxing coach does help, but if it's your main guy, that's not going to help, man. You need an MMA guy, right? That knows the transitions and the distance, which is very important for MMA. Yeah, Ferguson, you know, I'll watch him until 2025. You know, I mean, I think like he could fight until then. I think it's not over for him. He has so many fights, but it's so interesting that his takedown defense is so like suspect now when he's a wrestler, you know. But maybe he's gotten so comfortable with being on his back and training with, you know, submissions, throwing up submissions off his back, which is not very good in MMA, right? Unless you're very good off your back, then where you are comfortable to sit down there and throw elbows and maybe lock up something. But he hasn't locked up anything, and most of his submissions are with his arms. It's very rare with his legs. I think the last time he submitted somebody was Kevin Lee with the triangle, right? But other than that, he's always using the darces and, you know, and what is the head and arm chokes and stuff like that. So with Dariush, somebody Alex was saying that Dariush, he would like to see him against Dan Hooker or Gregor Gillespie. I don't know, man. I don't think you put him against Dan Hooker or Gregor Gillespie because Dariush was ranked number 3. He's not going to fight backwards, man. He just beat Tony Ferguson, which is a big win, but I don't know if it like warranted him going to number 3 though at the same time. You know what I mean? But if he got a title shot, I wouldn't be mad. But if he had to fight somebody else, and I think Dariush is thinking that he has to, I think there's a few guys in this what is it, in the rankings that you could put him against. Let's see who we got here. You got Poirier. I think, I don't think he's gonna fight Poirier. Poirier's gonna fight McGregor. If Poirier beats McGregor, then Poirier will probably fight for the title. If Conor McGregor beats Poirier, I don't think Conor McGregor fights for the title. I just have a feeling like, yeah, stylistically, that's a very bad matchup. Ryan, you don't think so? Like Charles Oliveira versus Conor McGregor, I don't think people are going to want to see that. You know what I mean? It doesn't have that pop. You know what I mean? That Charles Oliveira is great, but he doesn't have name value. You know what I mean? And he's such an exciting fighter, which confuses me. But at the same time, we've seen this many times with Brazilian champions. If they don't speak English, if they can't have that banter, they don't become, popular with fans. It's just so weird, even though they're exciting. Look at Jose Aldo, man. Very exciting fighter, not very popular. Even Anderson Silva in his beginning of his run, not very popular. He just became popular as he became this legend, right? But other than that, not so much. So what do you think of this McGregor Poirier winner, taking on Oliveira?
I think that's the plan 100%. I don't think it'll be Oliveira's next title defense, but I think that'll be the next fight for whoever wins that one. And the reason I see Conor doing it is less about who the opponent is and more about his legacy and his ego. If he gets a win over Poirier, wins that trilogy, the next logical thing he'll want is the belt. If he wins, he's not going to call out Diaz again, right? If he loses, that's the fight. They'll do the trilogy. But if he wins against Dustin Poirier, who's the number 1 contender, the only logical step is that belt. And I don't think to him it really matters who is the champion at the time. And if we're going to get into breaking down the matchup, yeah, I don't think it's the most stylistically easy or favorable matchup for McGregor, especially with that grappling threat. But hey, aside from his fight with Khabib, he's just sparked everyone out. He's got power in his hands, and there's no reason he can't do that to Charles Oliveira, who we just saw get dropped by Chandler in that first round. It's not like Charles Oliveira has this granite chin. So I would probably take Oliveira, just early pick, see what he looks like against Poirier for sure. But I don't think it matters who's champion. I think he wants a belt.
Chris, is Oliveira the best lightweight in the world?
Oh, good question. Personally, I don't think so. For me, it's Dustin Poirier. He's just so well-rounded, so good. I mean, you look at his record, and it's just phenomenal. You take out that loss against Michael Johnson, and his only other loss is to Khabib. So, yeah, I mean, Dustin Poirier probably fights for that title if the McGregor fight wasn't on the table. He was probably in there instead of Chandler for me. And I'd say Poirier probably wins that one. But I'm in the same camp as Ryan here. Like with Conor McGregor, I think he absolutely fights for the title if he wins this fight. I mean, why wouldn't he? He just wants to add another belt to the collection. I mean, the money will be good. It's a Conor McGregor fight. The money's going to be there. The fans are going to tune in. So,
yeah, it's hard for me to think that Conor's going to beat Dustin Poirier. I don't know. Like, he's training in Abu Dhabi, and he has his coaches coming over. But who's he training with? And does he have anybody else that's helping him? It's like he's having this camp that it basically replicates the camp ahead of the rematch against Poirier. And you've seen what happened. Even though McGregor looked great in that fight, though, I thought he looked great until he got finished. Right? He was hitting all cylinders. Right? He was striking, looked great. It just looked like he was just too big. I don't know. That's just my viewpoint. And he just gassed out. It just like he couldn't, keep up with Poirier. And I think that's what's just going to happen in the second fight. It's the same thing, or the third fight. It's just the same thing. But I do agree with you. I believe that Dustin Poirier is the best lightweight in the world. But the thing is, like, he has to prove it now. He has to prove us right by beating McGregor and then going on and beating Oliveira, right? And then, he proves to us that he is the best. But our opinions really don't matter, right? It's just our opinions until he goes out there and he's holding that belt. I feel like he will be holding that belt by the end of this year. I think the biggest fight is he goes out there, sparks McGregor, and then fights Oliveira in like November, December. And it'll be one of the biggest fights for us fans. It'll be one of the biggest fights for like casual fans. I don't think they would care as much about it because McGregor's not in it, you know. But for us, we would be salivating for that matchup, right? Because we know that Oliveira can now spark dudes on the feet, and he could take you to the ground, just like Poirier could. So yeah, let's see how it all plays out. Another thing that came out of this card was Beneil Dariush, a guy that does not really call people out, but he used his platform and that moment to call out Elon Musk. I thought that was beautiful. I thought that was the greatest. And you see what happened. He got a car. A few days later, Elon Musk, he responds and he gets a car. I think it was like a rental Tesla until he gets his own Tesla. But I thought it was used perfectly, and a guy that doesn't like to talk trash and call people out, he used it. And I feel like fighters can learn from this, man. Call people out. Like if you get the spotlight, have it ready for you. You know what I mean? Have it ready, because I know that fighters are always watching other fighters, and they know who they feel like they have a very big advantage against in the rankings, or even if you're not in the rankings, call out somebody if you have that platform. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think about, we'll start with you, Ryan, about fighters that come out and they have that platform, but they just say, oh, I'll just fight whoever the UFC wants me to fight?
Unless you're Robert Whittaker, that's not going to work, right? And we even see how that worked for Robert Whittaker. He didn't get the title shot. He had to fight Gastelum. But, for most fighters, especially up-and-coming fighters who aren't former champions, you need to be calling people out. Otherwise, people forget. It's like, look at Nate Diaz. He beat, who did he win over? Michael Johnson, and he called out Conor McGregor. And then he got that fight, and then he just propelled himself into superstardom. Before that, the hardcores were a big fan of Diaz, but once he fought McGregor, that was when he blew up, right? So if he didn't beat Johnson and call him out, if he went out there and was like, oh, yeah, it was a good performance I had today, I'll fight whoever the UFC wants to give me next, we would be on a completely different timeline in terms of MMA history, right? So you need to be calling people out. I thought the Beneil Dariush call out was pretty funny. But in his position, like, who is he going to call out? Gaethje would have been a good name. Aside from that, he could have called out the champion, but he didn't know who it was going to be yet. So he was in a bit of a tough spot. It would have been probably wise of him to just say, I want the winner of the title fight. But, he's in a pretty good position where there was no clear person to call out. In terms of someone else who's rising the ranks, like, hey, if Islam Makhachev gets a win over Thiago Moises and doesn't call out a top 5 guy, I think that's a missed opportunity, because obviously his whole camp and where he's from, they're going to want to push him, but they're not going to push him unless he gives them a reason to, right? That's how I see it anyway. What do you think?
Yeah, him and Julian Marquez, he called out what's that chick's name?
Miley Cyrus.
Miley Cyrus, and then he called out like some the Kansas City Chiefs football team on some kind of like game show thing. And yeah, man, if you're not going to call out fighters, find something, you know what I mean? Because you could benefit from it. We see that Beneil Dariush got a Tesla from his call out, right? So call out, like Alex was saying in the chat, call out Sony if you want the new PS5. Use the platform, right? Call them out. If you want to get into the game, call out, DC and have him put you in the game, right? Like Dan Hooker. Who did he beat? I forgot who he beat. And then Paul Felder walks up with a mic to interview him, and he says, I'm calling you out. I want to fight you. Yeah. And he's like the commentator, right? So you have to take advantage of it, man. And he got that fight eventually. It wasn't the next one, but that planted the seed, right? And then he got it. So it's so important, Chris, that fighters go out there, and then this is not just about fighting now. Or it's never been just about fighting. It's about what's the next steps. You don't have to tell people before the fight, but when it's your moment, Chris, you got to take advantage, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, if you're not going to call out a fighter, at least say something that is going to make people remember you. Like, this is it's a sport, but it's also a business. You got to make yourself memorable. You got to build your brand. Like you said, Julian Marquez, he's had 2 absolutely wild call outs, but he's benefited from both of them. So you really have to be smart with your time on the microphone, especially on these big pay-per-view cards. Like, people are going to be watching, so you got to come prepared.
You got to come prepared, man. That's important right there. You do. And, call out anybody. Just get some attention, because sometimes you'll make a call out and that will get national attention. You know what I mean? Especially if you call out the president or, somebody that's notable. Call out Tom Cruise, you know what I mean? Even if it's a joke, call out Justin Bieber, you know what I mean? Like, call somebody out. Somebody that has a big following, just like Marcus did, Miley Cyrus, you know what I mean? Like, tell them you want to fight Howard Stern. I don't know, man. Just do something, right? It's just, you got to take advantage of it.
I will add to this that just like, I know it's much more broad, but for upcoming fighters who are, I wouldn't say amateurs, but people debuting professionally and stuff, you need to start branding yourself like from your first fight. I think it's pretty lame. I'm sick of seeing when I go to local events and these professional fighters are winning their fights and then just being simply like, oh, I want to thank my team. I want to thank the fans for coming out. You have the spotlight. People are there watching you. Call out someone else in the organization. Try and work your way up. There's so many organizations in Australia. Well, there's a few. All of them, the champions seem to have issue getting contenders that actually want to fight them. They end up just getting booked with people that are like, I don't know, kind of around their level of competition. But there's no one calling for these fights. And when there is, they get the fights. So I think it's a good lesson for all professional fighters. From like your first professional bout, you should have an idea of who you want next and you should go out there and ask for it. That's just my opinion.
You make a great point, man, because at those local events, everybody's there, man. Every team is there. All the coaches are there. Even the guys in your division is there. Even the champion is there. He might even be fighting that night. So when you're there, everybody's watching you. You got the mic. You have to call them out. Even if it's your first fight, with the promotion, just call somebody out, right? Like, point to somebody in the crowd like, hey, I see him. He's all in my division. I'm calling all you guys out. You know what I mean? No disrespect, but I'm calling all you because I think I could beat all you guys. So if you think you could beat me, step up to the plate, right? We could say that right now, but I think it's it's a little bit more nerve-wracking when you're in front of everybody in the middle of the cage, right? After you just went head to head with another guy. But I'm just saying, take advantage of it. And Eddie the Blasian, he makes a great point, man, right here. Derek Lewis is the master of taking advantage. He is, man. He is. He took his shorts off. He says, my balls are hot, right? Like, do something, man. Like, have something.
And they got him a title shot.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. My balls are hot. Got him a title shot. So, speaking of taking advantage of the crowd and the media and all of that, today or yesterday, we found out that Diego Sanchez, he parted ways with his longtime manager, coach, guru, psychologist. I don't know. He was everything for him, right? Everything. Like, I remember he did an interview talking about, like, I do everything for Diego. And I'm reading this article on MMA Fighting by Steve Morocco. I think he's the one who broke the news, right? And what he's saying is Diego Sanchez, he's declining to speak with the media right now. He wants to like gather his thoughts and then he'll speak with the media next week. I think the big story is like, who's going to get the first interview with Joshua Fabia after the breakup? Like, that's the one, right? I'm trying to get that one, right? I'm working my angles, right? I'm trying to get that right now. So what the article is saying is that Sanchez's attorney, Charles Lacken, he said that Sanchez has withdrawn his business ties to the coach. Any power of attorney that Fabia had, it has been rescinded or terminated. So basically, their business relationship, right? Everything that's going on probably with that, the school of self-awareness and stuff like that. Most likely he cut ties with that too. This was something that most people thought. I didn't think this was going to happen. To be honest with you, personally, I thought that they were going to ride until the wheels fall off, right? Because that's what it seemed like. But all the damage that Joshua Fabia did up to this point, you cannot take that back, man. The UFC is not going to re-sign you. Do you think, let's talk about that. Chris, do you think the UFC is going to re-sign Diego Sanchez just because Joshua Fabia is gone now from the picture?
I don't think just because that. I think, he's going to have to jump through a couple of hoops if he wants to get back into the UFC. I mean, like what Diego said when he left a couple of weeks ago, like, he's done a lot for the promotion, and a lot of people are still fans of his. Whatever has happened outside of the cage and all that going on, people will still like to watch Diego Sanchez fight. So I think the UFC will have an option to bring him back. It's just a matter of what they want from Diego for that to happen. But it definitely won't be just because he's no longer with Joshua Fabia. There's got to be more to it than that.
Does Diego even have value for the promotion now? You know what I mean? He is an older guy. I know he's had, he's dedicated many, many years to the UFC, but, it's a business. You know what I mean? If you're going to bring back somebody, they have to have some kind of value for the promotion, right? What kind of fights does, Diego have left? How many fights does Diego have left? And will it just be a burden for the promotion to bring him back? And also, you remember, he was talking shit about Dana White, man. If you're talking shit about Dana White and you trying to go back there and get re-signed by the UFC, how many guys have talked shit about Dana White and was re-signed? Ryan, do you remember any guys?
Talk shit about Dana White and have been re-signed. Can't remember any, but talk shit about Dana White and been signed. Obviously got Ben Askren. They had a back and forth back in the day. It's not unsurprising that people have been signed after doing shit, but yeah, not re-signed. Look, they're not going to re-sign Diego Sanchez. I don't think. I think there's about a 1% chance. But the move here, I'm telling you boys, this is the move. Diego Sanchez takes some time off, gets his stuff together, and then he takes on Joshua Fabia in their own organization, the School of Self-Awareness Promotion, main event, Joshua Fabia, Diego Sanchez. Hey, there's some back and forth there because Sanchez claims that when he first rolled with Fabia, he was tapped in 40 seconds. So look, if I'm a betting man, I'm probably going to bet on Fabia in this one, just with that track record, but I want to see it.
Wow, man, that's a great proposal, man. The School of Self-Awareness Promotions and Fabia versus for Sanchez. Like you said, Diego has admitted to getting tapped out, getting beat up, and you've seen the footage of the training, right? Like it's out of this world. You know what I mean? He knows some stuff. Maybe he was visited by aliens, and maybe he went on an ayahuasca trip and he figured everything out on his own on the Amazon River in Brazil or something. I don't know, but another option would be what? Triller would be another option. Fabia versus Sanchez in like a no holds. Yeah, fight circuit. Oh, fight circus, of course, man. In a no holds bar. You know what I mean? Like you can use death touch. You know what I mean? Like yeah, you can use the death touch, right? And I think fight circus, John Nutt, he would be the one. He would be the one to bring this together. Get John Nutt on the phone. Fight circus on Phuket Island. Where other better place to do it, right? But Perfect. I think another thing is like with everything that transpired with the UFC, with Fabia and Diego Sanchez, a lot of the other promotions probably didn't even want to touch Diego Sanchez because of Fabia, right? And everything that he did and his constant like clashes with the commentators and with the executives and everybody, and that I think that put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. But with Fabia out the picture, now I feel like doors will open for Sanchez. I think some of these regional promotions will sign Sanchez. They'll be open to it. Why? I think Combate can sign him, because Combate, Spanish, organization, Latin organization, Sanchez, Mexican, right? Why not? You know what I mean? Why not bring him in and have him fight? So they signed Tito. Right? Like how many people knew Tito was like Mexican? I don't think many people knew Tito was Mexican, right? But yeah, they signed Tito. If they sign Tito, I think they could sign Sanchez, but who knows, right? But I think like him being on his own, it helps him to continue his career. With Fabia, I don't think people wanted to touch him. But yeah, man, like just like in retrospect, Chris, like this whole thing that transpired last couple of years with Fabia, man, it's like embedded in MMA history. Right? It's just something that we could always look back to is like, will we ever see something like that again?
Yeah, it was a very, very strange sort of couple years with Diego Sanchez. Very, very strange. Like this guy kind of came out of nowhere and all of a sudden he's Diego's only cornerman and he's running around trying to knife people at training. Like all those videos are just, you watch them and you're like, what the hell is going on? And I don't know, there might have been some benefit in some way for Diego, but just as someone watching from the outside, it's just a bizarre new world that everyone got a brief glimpse into.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, you guys, make sure you guys hit that subscribe and like and all that, and if you're watching the replay, put a comment down below if you disagree, agree, or you just think we're stupid. It's all good. We don't care. Yeah, so if you got some questions, put them in the chat, man. We're gonna get to those questions there shortly. We'll get to this one right now. This is something that I think is interesting. Alex is asking his thoughts on the Islam versus Thiago Moises fight. Man, it's like Thiago Moises and Islam Makhachev. I feel like that's how you say his name. These guys, they're very good, very talented, and very quietly rose up the ranks, right? And Islam, a lot of people say nobody wants to fight him, but at the same time, I feel like everybody would fight him. You know what I mean? It's not like he is Khabib, right? And then there's people that are saying that he's better than Khabib, but have we seen that? Have we seen him better than Khabib? What about you, Ryan? Do you believe so?
No, we haven't. I don't think so. No, because we've seen him finish. That was the allure of Khabib. We'd never seen him. We'd never seen him even dropped once. So we've seen Islam Makhachev get finished. I think it was his debut, or maybe it was his second fight in the promotion. He got knocked out. So I think the allure of like being this invincible wrestler who's going to take you down and maul you, it's just gone. Not to say he's bad by any means. He's a great fighter, and I think he can be a top contender. He could even be a champion, but he just doesn't have the allure of Khabib. And I just think it's different. I think the way people are saying that he can't get fights and all that, he's looking for fights up the rankings, and the top guys are looking at it as, why am I going to take this risk against a guy who's ranked number 13 or 12 or something? And I just think there's no upside to them. Obviously had that RDA booking initially, and that would have been huge had that gone ahead, but it didn't. So it's weird. I don't think people are ducking him. In terms of the Moises matchup, I think he probably just steamrolls Moises. Moises has some pretty slick grappling, but it's nothing. It's not like he's got a really impressive bottom game or anything. If he doesn't catch him in like a heel hook like he did Johnson, can't see him submitting Makhachev. On the feet, it's even money in my opinion. You could really take either one on the feet. So I just think that's a quite an easy matchup for Makhachev, but I'd like to be surprised. So if Moises goes out there and wins the fight, hey, that's good for Moises and he'll move up the rankings.
Yeah, I think that this benefits Moises more than it benefits Islam. This matchup. Moises kind of goes in there with a win-win situation, right? And Islam is taking a chance fighting somebody down. I don't even think Moises is ranked, is he? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, he just snuck in. With,
that's right.
A champion coming in, so he's 15 now.
Yeah, they want to justify Islam, I guess. The rankings are funny. Yeah. Every rankings are funny, right? All of them. It's not, none of them are special. So what do you think of this matchup, man? Is it something that, do you feel like people are ducking Islam, Chris?
I don't think so. I think I'm very much along the same lines as Ryan. I think, he recently had a back and forth with Paul Felder online, and Felder's a different situation where he's openly said he only wants to take fights that excite him, and Islam Makhachev is not going to be one of those fights, at least not right now. I'd like to see Islam fight Gregor Gillespie one day, but I don't think that's a fight that many fans will get excited about, just because it's two out-and-out wrestlers who will probably just have a wrestling match. But I'd like to see that fight.
All right. Well, I like to see those fights too, and with Islam, man, I think that you just still need to give him a little bit more time, man. He needs to beat Moises, and he needs to fight some other guys moving up in the ranks, and he needs to finish guys. I think Dan Hooker, he made a great point. It's like, if you're outside of the top 15 and you're winning by decision, or you're just winning and you're not winning impressively, it's hard to, ask for somebody so high up in the rankings. Dan Hooker, he finished 4 guys in a row to get a ranked opponent, right? It took him a while. It's not like he just jumped in there like a Michael Chandler, he took him, he built himself up. So I think like a lot of guys, they need to think about that too. Like, if you go out there and you're just scraping by, it's hard to justify yourself to call out somebody like that. I know you should call out somebody, but at the same time, you need to be realistic about your call outs too, right? You're not going to call out, Oliveira and you just made your debut. then people are just gonna laugh at you, right? It's just the reality of it. Let's go to this next question. Where is it? Oh well, okay. So I guess on the Helwani show, supposedly Felder and Hooker turned down fights, and RDA declined to rebook the. According to Daniel, the thing about it is Daniel Cormier is teammates with Islam Makhachev. So of course he's gonna tell you these things, right? Like I don't know. He might know insider information, but the thing is, turn down fights and just like laughed off the fight, the matchup is different, man. It's different. Like turning down a fight is completely different from, we think turning down a fight would be like, oh, they were sent the contracts and blah. No, just like, hey, you want to fight? No, because I'm here. It doesn't make sense for me to fight this guy right now, right? It's just I gotta fight a guy that I need to move up with, right? Or that allows me to move up. So, So DC Helwani, Islam versus Rafael Fiziev. Yeah, it's a great matchup, but let's be realistic. Rafael Fiziev, he still needs to beat a couple more guys, right? He's a danger, and I love him, you know what I mean? But I don't think he's worthy of a Islam. Like him calling out Kevin Lee. I'm glad he's calling these guys out, and maybe one of them might stick, but I don't think these guys are gonna fall for it. They're not gonna fall. It's Rafael Fiziev is such a danger for anybody, right? We've seen him when like his debut, he got knocked out, but I think he shook off whatever jitters or whatever that was like kind of like blocking him from his potential in that fight, and he came out and kind of built himself up, right? And now we see like the full 100% version of Fiziev, and he's going to be a top 5 fighter. I think that's going to be, inevitable, in the next couple of years, and he's still very young, so you just give him some time. What about Diego Tejeda versus Islam would be, that would be a great fight. There's a lot of great fights, right? A lot of great fights for a lot of these guys. What is it? Brad Riddell beats Drew Dover. I would see that is actually right. What do you guys think about that, Chris?
I think they probably, if Brad gets through Drew, I think they probably look at rebooking the Gillespie matchup. I mean, why wouldn't you? Gillespie might not take the fight now that I think he's in the top 10 again now, so he might be looking upwards, but I think that would probably be the first option. And if that fight can't happen, then maybe Islam. I know Brad was extremely excited to test himself against the wrestling of Gillespie, so against the wrestling of Islam, I mean, it'd basically be just as exciting for him, I think, to show that he's not just a stand and bang guy like everyone seems to think.
Well, that's what he's shown us, right? Ryan, let's talk about Brad Riddell and these matchups like Gregor Gillespie and Islam Makhachev. Drew Dober, I feel like, is more favorable for his style. Islam and Gillespie, those are dangerous fights for Brad Riddell, man. I'm just saying, I mean? Like, I'm a city kickboxing guy, but still, man, when you look at it like on paper, don't you think that that's extremely dangerous? Riddell could fight other guys.
Oh, 100%. Look, I think it's the same thing as the Fiziev. You're just saying he could be a top 5 guy. I won't know that until I see him tested against one of these high-level wrestlers, right? And that's the problem that Riddell's going to have if he fights someone like Islam or someone like Gillespie. Look, when I was breaking down the initial booking of Gillespie versus Riddell, I was taking Gillespie all day. I knew he got knocked out by Kevin Lee, but I thought he's just going to use his wrestling. It'll be too much. We'll see what Riddell looks like in this fight against Dober. Look, if he goes out there and smokes Dober, I'll have more confidence putting him against these high-level wrestlers, because we haven't seen like him get dominated in wrestling by any means. So maybe I'm just not giving him enough credit. I hope that's the case. But this is a fun fight, and it'll really tell you which one of these two fighters belongs in that top 15 and who is probably getting the boot out. One thing I will mention, I consulted my crystal ball, and I found out that with a win over Moises, they're going to give Islam either RDA or Tony Ferguson. You can write that down and mark my words, because both those guys are ranked 6 and 8, I believe. And look, they're going to want to push Makhachev into that like top 10 title contention with this win. It makes sense. He'll probably get a number 9 ranking, number 8 ranking, and then they'll give him one of those two fights. But yeah, as far as Riddell goes, I love the fight against Dober. Really excited to watching it. I think that's pretty 50-50, but I am worried for him against these high-level wrestlers.
With what is it? You're talking about what was his name? I forgot, man. Just fucking my brain. It's just shot.
Gregor Gillespie? Who we talking
Yeah,
about?
was it Gregor Gillespie? I don't even know. I was thinking about something, and then I got sidetracked with this question. So I'm gonna move on to this question. Chris, let's look at this. Chris, Diego versus T Wood and Combate. Come on, let's see that.
Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
If they both still want to fight and Combate can make it happen, why not? One for the fans.
Yeah, exactly. But I think T Wood.
That's about all I have to say on that one.
I think T Wood, you saw him on the desk, right? ESPN, I believe, right? So he's good on there. He's good on the desk. I don't think he's gonna. I don't know. I don't really see him fighting MMA anymore. I see him maybe going off and doing that one-off like Triller boxing match against some random football player or basketball player or something like that. But other than that, man, I see him pursuing his other passions and then sitting on the desk and doing his thing. I think that's the natural progression. If you have accomplished what he's accomplished in his career, you don't have to continue fighting, right? You could do other things, and you're gonna, and financially it seems like he's in a good spot, right? He works with TMZ, he does many things, man, outside of the sport. Continue doing that and build another legacy, right? Build the second career. Like Brendan Schaub, everybody talks about him. He quit, and he was never the level of fighter as Tyron Woodley, and he quit and just transitioned right over to podcasting and analyst roles and comedian and I don't even know what the hell you would call him. You know what I mean? Like it's but he's got a fan base, man. He's built this fan base. I think most of them are probably idiots, but I'm just saying he's built a fan base that listens to him and loves him. And yeah, man, I think Woodley, he could do the same thing. I think he could be in movies. He's had some roles, not very good with roles, picking roles, because have you seen that one clip of him like in a movie where he gets his like dick like smashed up by some like animal in a cage or something? Have you seen that? No. Oh my God! It's on Twitter somewhere. It's on Twitter somewhere. Like
drop the link on Twitter and we'll go.
Yeah, somebody drop the link on that because it's a weird scene, man. You know who else is in that movie? It's T.I., the rapper T.I. He's like it looks like he's like a gang leader, and then like Tyron Woodley did something wrong, and then he brings in like a caged animal, and then like makes T Woodley pull his pants down, and then he chomps on his little, little nether regions.
You know who was in a good movie? I'll just pivot into this for a second. Brian Ortega. He was in that movie that oh God, what's it called? Let me Google it.
He was in a movie? I didn't even know that.
He was in a movie. He was in The Tax Collector with Shia LaBeouf. It's a great film, actually, really good one. And yeah, he had like a fairly minor role, but he was on screen. He was in focus. His character was kind of important, and he did well. It was really good. So props to Brian Ortega.
I want to see that movie. Where can we see that? Where can we see
everywhere?
That movie? Everywhere. All
Probably.
right. Yeah. I'm down for that. I like a lot of people hate Shia LaBeouf. I think he's a good actor, man. I don't look at him as what he's doing outside of the acting. I think he's a great actor. I think he's better than like 99% of the actors out there right now, man. He could play so many different roles, especially Tax Collector. Is he playing some like Mexican gangster?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Exactly, man. Like Shia LaBeouf, he was Disturbia, some like white kid in the suburb, like stalking some neighbors and shit, and then now he becomes some Mexican gangster, man. It's like, what's the range, man? I love it. But yeah, so Brian Ortega, I'm gonna have to go check that out. There's a few movies where I've just like caught glimpses of former MMA fighters. You know who's always in movies? Who was that big dude that was like Joe Rogan's bodyguard back in the day? And he was in The Ultimate Fighter also, but he's in a lot of movies nowadays, man. I forgot his name, but he has a big. I think he's the one that created Caveman Coffee. Like that becomes very popular now. But yeah, he's in a lot of movies. You catch him in a lot of movies nowadays where he's just playing like some special ops guy or like some gangster because he just looks like it. He's just a big monster of a man with a huge beard. So yeah, you see him a lot. There was one movie I saw like Max Holloway. He was playing like a garbage man or something. And then, somebody else was in that movie too. I just don't remember the names of the movies, but
GSP's in everything, right? GSP's in all the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's in the Marvel TV shows. He was in the Winter Soldier movie. Like he's really involved in like that, like Disney Marvel canon now. GSP is. So
oh, really? I've never. I see. I don't watch those movies, so I have no interest in it. So I've never
It's
seen
because he's got
GSP.
the movie star hair now.
Yeah,
He's got the
that's
movie
it.
star hair, so he gets cast in roles. Yeah.
He went completely Hollywood. Oh, there's another thing that I want to transition to is Dana White blocking GSP from fighting Oscar De La Hoya, man. The thing about this is, from what I remember, right? GSP retires, right? Top of the game, arguably he lost that fight, but he won. Judges gave it to him, so whatever. He comes back, fights Bisping, wins the title at 185, right? But then I heard, I don't know if this is true or not, these are rumors that GSP agreed that he would defend that title and continue fighting if the UFC allowed him to come back. But that never happened, right? He fought once and then he retired, right? And he never fought again. And even with the Khabib fight and all of that, they couldn't come to terms. And I think, and at the end of the day, this is a business. And I think the UFC, they're still bitter about that, right? And that's why they're blocking him from not fighting. And if you notice, Dana White doesn't answer those questions directly. He always says, fuck Jake Paul. I ain't never doing business with that guy. And this indirectly saying that, GSP is never going to fight over at Triller, right? And so what do you guys think? What do you guys think about, we'll start with you, Ryan. What do you think about this whole thing about GSP getting cock blocked by Dana White?
Well, the first thing is, he came back because he was like, said you're right. I did hear that as well. So I'd say it's probably right. He agreed to come back and fight for the belt. And if he won, he was going to defend against Whitaker or Romero, one of the two. I can't remember. The reason he didn't is because of medical problems. And that's why he said he had to retire again, because he wasn't medically fit to fight, because he had some stomach issue. I don't know. He talks about it on Rogan. Go listen to that. It's pretty good. But, that's why he didn't fight. And then he wanted to come back and fight Khabib, and I have no idea why the promotion didn't make that fight. Even if you're worried about like him winning a belt and then riding off in the sunset again, Khabib doesn't have a belt anymore. You can make that fight right now. And look, if you're gonna make a return fight for GSP, who wants to see him box? Like, as far as a fan's perspective, I don't want to see GSP box. If I want to see him fight, I want to see him come back and fight Khabib. That's the only fight to make. The UFC's position on this is probably more that if we're not going to make money off GSP, we're not letting someone else make money off him. That's how I see it anyway. If he wants to come back and box, maybe they can organize something with the UFC. But obviously, Oscar De La Hoya has like Golden Boy Promotions or something, right? So he's not going to want to do business with the UFC, let alone his relationship with Dana White. So look, if GSP wants to come back, I think the UFC would be more than happy to book him against Khabib now that Khabib has no belt. But I don't see that happening. I'm not saying that will happen.
Chris, does GSP defeat Oscar De La Hoya in a boxing match? That's the one.
Great question. I don't know. I've never seen GSP boxing, and I don't know if I want to see GSP box. I'm quite happy.
He has a great jab, though,
yeah.
right?
I'm quite happy just staying, in the glory days of GSP, and not seeing him fight again if he's not going to fight mixed martial arts or come back for the Khabib fight. I mean, if he's still contracted to the UFC and they can block this De La Hoya fight from going ahead, then I don't really see why he'd come back and fight for the UFC either. So it's kind of put him in a really weird spot. But in terms of beating an actual boxer, I mean, De La Hoya's pretty old and washed, isn't he? So anything can happen in these weird money fights that are going on these days. So let's just say GSP wins. Let's book it.
Yeah, I'll support GSP. I support GSP beating Oscar De La Hoya. But yeah, I think that's just fantasy stuff. So, so last on the docket for us, is UFC Vegas 27 coming up this weekend. There's some good fights, on the card. Before we get into the top 3 fights that I want to discuss, we'll talk about some of the Anzac fighter that are on there. We got Josh Kulabau and Justin Tafa. I spoke with both of them. I've known both of them for a while now. I've known them when they were coming up on the regional scene. Both great guys. What do you guys think of? Let's start with you, Chris. What do you think of the Kulabau Xiao Ilan matchup? Do you think that this is a great matchup for Kulabau?
Well, to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about the guy he's fighting. When it comes to Josh, I'm still pretty grumpy at the judges for not giving him that win over Charles Jourdain, which he quite clearly won. how they found a 10-8 round in that third, I will never know. But hey, I'm not a judge, and yeah. But hopefully this fight goes his way. I mean, Josh has had a pretty tough introduction into the UFC, obviously making his debut upper weight class against Jalen Turner, who's a pretty underrated beast in lightweight. Looking forward to seeing when he comes back, because he's quite fun to watch. Yeah, in terms of this matchup, I can't really say a whole lot about it because, to be honest, I have not done my research on the other guy.
Well, Shah Yilan, right? A lot of people, these Chinese names are no joke, right? But Shah Yilan, he was a guy that was fighting at lightweight, and then now he's dropping down to featherweight for the first time, I believe, in his career to make his UFC debut. He's a guy, shorter, stockier guy, a guy that likes to grapple. You know what I mean? He's pretty good at getting the underhooks and taking guys down. Josh, he's been working a lot on strength and conditioning. You can kind of see it in his body. It's a little bit different ahead of this fight. I think it's a great matchup. I don't know who's going to win. Josh is favored, but I think that it has a lot to do with Josh having experience in the octagon. And on top of that, Chinese fighters just haven't been performing very well, especially the ones that are coming out that PI, that UFC Academy in Shanghai. If you notice in the pay-per-view that we watched a couple weeks ago, 3 of the Chinese fighters, or 4 of them, they were coming from that academy, and they all lost, I believe, except for one. No, actually, they all lost.
One of them won, didn't they?
No, one of them.
I'm sure one of them won.
No, one of them was from Mongolia, and he wasn't part of the PI. So yeah, right. But he already had a couple fights in the UFC. But yeah, so yeah, hopefully Josh does his thing. Now let's talk about Justin Tafa. I'm pretty sure you've looked into this, Ryan. Justin Tafa, his last fight was just one of the funnest fights. I think it's a fight of the year candidate, man. So tell me, about this matchup.
It should be a fun one. His last fight was really fun, but it they threw like technique out the door in the third and just started slinging big at each other. One thing it did show was that Tafa's chin is solid, and that first loss he had in the UFC against oh god, I'm blanking. Whoever he lost,
Castro.
So that seemed to me like I wouldn't say a lucky shot, but I don't think he's getting knocked out like that again anytime soon. And I don't see it happening in this matchup. I think Tafa's got too much power for Vandera. Is that Vandera? Yeah. I feel like he's got too much power. I think he's going to land, and I think he's going to put him out, hopefully early, because if this goes late, it could turn into one of those boring heavyweight fights. But if Tafa's records anything go by, it probably won't, and we should be in for a fun one.
Yeah, Chris, what do you think about that? Vandera has a chance?
In my completely biased opinion, I'm going to say no. I just like Tafa too much in this matchup. We saw against Sergey Spivak, obviously Vandera didn't get much of a chance to show much on the feet, because Spivak's an absolute beast and can take you to the ground and just pound you out like he did in that one. Against a guy like Tafa, I think Vandera is going to be a little bit outmatched on the feet and might have to look to try and wrestle him a little bit and tire him out and try and make this fight go a little longer. It's just a matter of being able to do that. We saw against Felipe that Tafa's distance control is quite good when he's fresh. He fights southpaw, which some people have a little bit of trouble dealing with. And yeah, I think like Ryan said, Tafa just lands something, hopefully early, and finishes it up. And I mean, this is a huge fight for Justin Tafa as well, because he got dealt that loss in the last one. Like he's 1 win, 2 losses, last fight of the contract. Like he's fighting for a spot in the promotion, and I think we're going to see that in his performance.
Yeah, with Tafa, one thing that's I think people forget is this is only his 7th fight as a professional, man. Like he's growing up in the UFC, and I think win or lose, the UFC signs him again. He's too exciting. Like he's young, and he will go out there and put it on dudes. Like his power is insane. I'm biased too, you know what I mean? I know Tafa, so like I've known him for a while. But yeah, it's not like I'm rooting for him, but I think that this is a favorable matchup for him. And Vandera is a guy that will exchange on the feet, which is not going to be good for him. You know what I mean? His chin better be tucked, because Tafa's going to test it. And also Vandera is going to test Tafa's chin too, man. It's not like it's just one-sided. Both these guys can fight. And one thing I don't see happening is any kind of takedowns. You know what I mean? I don't see that happening at all. Maybe Vandera, I don't know, but it's hard to say. With Tafa, man, I think he's matured a lot from his last fight, from talking to him, and he wants to be a little bit more patient and to be more technical and to show more diversity in his striking. So hopefully we see that. Now, the one of the big fights I think on this card is Jack Hermansson versus Edmund Shahbazian, right? So we got Alex asking this question: is who has the most to lose in the Shahbazian Hermansson fight, as both guys are coming off a loss? We'll start with you, Ryan.
Good question. The most to lose, probably Hermansson, right? Because he's been at the top of that division like in the past year. So for him to come within a year and just fall out, if he takes a loss here, he'll probably be like 14 or something. He's not going to be near the top. He's going to have a long road back. Shahbazian's pretty new. He had that loss to Brunson. Even if he takes another loss here, if with a big win, a big knockout of one of these top 15, like 10 to 15 guys, he can put himself back into a fight with Kevin Holland or someone. There's a road for him to work back. Whereas I think for Hermansson, the road is a lot longer with a loss.
Chris, who do you think wins this fight, and why do you believe so?
I have struggled a lot looking at this fight. I think I've landed on Hermansson because I think he can take Shahbazian to the ground and get the win down there, whether it's just grinding it out for a decision or finding a submission. But I think he's got a distinct advantage down there. And the reason that I struggled with it is because we've seen Hermansson get touched up. And Shahbazian is by far a better striker than Hermansson is, and I think he's a better striker than Vettori is, and Vettori put hands all over Hermansson. So that's going to be a real issue for him if he can't get this fight, at least in close quarters where he can kind of grapple his way to a win. But yeah, I'll probably go back and forth a few more times before the fight actually happens and I have to make my pick. Maybe I'll just wait and see who the closing underdog is and pick them. Love an underdog.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that I think a lot of people forget about Shahbazian is that kid, when he was a teenager, he was one of the main training partners of Ronda Rousey. So he is very well versed on the ground, especially at defending arm bars, more likely, because Ronda Rousey was arm barring everybody. So and he probably knows a lot of ways to get into that armbar position to finish. So I'm interested to see if he does get taken down and they get into this like jiu-jitsu grappling exchanges. Can Shahbazian be able to submit Hermansson? Because I don't think that's out of the realm of a possibility, even though we've seen him just want to strike and knock people out. But Hermansson is no joke on the feet either, man. You guys got to remember, in that Marvin Vettori fight, he broke his orbital in the first round, so he was blind on one side for the rest of the fight. And I think that you got to keep that in mind heading into this fight, right? That we didn't see the best of Hermansson because Vettori was just so phenomenal in that fight, especially in the first round where he clipped him and broke his orbital. So we'll see. And plus this was delayed. Remember, their camps were delayed. What, 2 weeks now? Was there 1 week or 2 weeks? 1 week, right? So 1 week. And I don't know, man. I think that makes a difference, man. Everything makes a difference. Any little tweak to what's going on makes a difference for these fighters. So we'll see. The next one up is the co-main event. And this has title implications. I feel like whoever wins this fight, and I interviewed Yan Xiaonan, and she said that the UFC told her that whoever wins this fight is going to get the next shot at Rose Namajunas. And Carlo Esparza, she was going to fight Wei Li if Rose didn't step up to the plate. So we'll see what happens. Now with this fight, Ryan, do you see it's like a wrestler versus striker right here? It's 100%. Like, can Yan sprawl and brawl, and can Esparza take it to the ground and hold her there? Basically, that's it. Esparza's been pretty dominant. You know what I mean? It's not the most exciting style, but pretty dominant. So do you think she's going to be able to go in there and do the exact same thing?
I do. I think it's going to be a boring fight, and I think she's going to get the win, mostly just ground control, position control. Really can't see her getting a submission here. I can't see either fighting pulling off a knockout. I kind of, I don't want to make I don't want to seem like I'm favoring anyone, but I would like to see Xiaonan show some impressive strike and get a finish, right? But she just hasn't, like, from my memory, maybe I'm wrong, she hasn't put together like a crazy knockout. Didn't she break someone's face in New Zealand? Is that right?
Yeah, Karolina Kovacevic. She absolutely
she hasn't fought since
her.
then. Yeah, she hasn't.
Yeah.
Oh, you were there. You were there.
Yeah. That was Kovacevic's last fight, I think.
Yeah,
so I don't know if she's still planning on coming back or whatever, but yeah.
Well, since then she hasn't. Yeah, since then, Xiaonan hasn't really showed like some crazy striking power that's going to put Esparza out. So I can't really see that happening. And because of that, I think Esparza is just going to have her way with her on the ground. That's how
that's the interesting, narrative going in here, right? Is Xiaonan, she is a volume striker, right? So she'll volume you and beat you up. And it's just how much can your face take? Right, if you stand, and the big difference is the wrestling. Carla's not going to sit there and try to trade with her. She's going to go in there, latch on, clinch, try to go for the takedowns against the fence. And if Hyon can defend along the fence, use the fence to her ability, to her advantage, then this fight becomes very interesting. Chris, do you see that happening though? Do you believe in Hyon's defensive wrestling?
Well, so far it's been pretty good. Like I thought Claudia Gadelha was gonna be able to take her down and grind something out on the floor, but that did not happen, and she got pieced up, and Hyon got a really good win. Carla Esparza is a different story. She's a much more scary prospect if you're talking about grappling and trying to fend her off. I think the same as Ryan for this one. I think Carla Esparza is just going to be too good, too strong, and she'll just be able to hold her down. If Hyon does land something quite big and substantial early, I think things might go a little bit differently, and Carla might have to worry a little bit about trying to get inside and force that pressure. But from the outset, I think Carla's just going to be too strong, and the wrestling's going to be too good. So unfortunately for people who have been watching Hyon and seen her striking and just how good she is on the feet, expecting a exciting fight like her last few, I don't think we're going to get that.
Yeah, it's just if you're looking at it on paper in the most recent performances of both these girls, you have to pick Carla, because the takedowns and the wrestling and the pressure is just phenomenal, right? And will Hyon be able to get back up? And the thing is, like, we haven't seen her face that type of caliber of wrestler in the octagon. So, but I think Hyon will be able to do it. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm biased too in this aspect, a little bit. Yeah. But I think that is what would make more of a fun and interesting title fight. Also, is because the China thing, number one, the politics and all that's involved, right? Of, Rose saying those comments, that's going to be brought up again heading into a title fight if Hyon wins. And Hyon will sit there and trade with Rose. And that's what we want to see. We want to see Rose in there trading with somebody that's going to strike with her, right? And I don't know. I feel like Hyon is tougher than Weili. I don't know. This is just my opinion. I feel like she's more durable than Weili is. So I think Hyon will be able to take the shots that Rose has. Because I think Rose is probably, in the history of the sport, probably has some of the most deceptive power, KO power that we've ever seen, right? Just unbelievable. Just looking at her, you don't expect it out of her, but she has it in her feet, in her hands. So it's going to be a fun one, man. I think it's going to be a fun one. But it also can be extremely boring, like you guys said. I hope you guys are wrong. I hope you guys are wrong. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, let's move on to the main event. We got Rob Font versus Cody Garbrandt. This is also has a lot of implications in that title picture, especially for Cody Garbrandt. The UFC loves him, man. They like pushing him, and that's why they put him against Rob Font, because they want to see if Rob Font can sink or swim, and vice versa with Cody Garbrandt. Rafa heads in here. They're the same height, but he has a 6-inch reach advantage. That is crazy, right? Like, how do you have a 6-inch reach advantage at that weight and you guys are the same height? It's just crazy. They're both orthodox. Rafa more active on the feet, right? He lands more, right? More significant strikes. They're not really much of a takedown type of fighter, right? And Cody Garbrandt's not really a guy that's going to go there. Even though he is a wrestler, he has the background wrestling, but he loves his boxing. He did look great against Fau Vake, knocked him out in the last second at the bell. Rafa, he had a crazy fight against Marlon Moraes, knocked him out. I'm gonna give you guys my pick. I think Rafa goes in there and gets it done against Cody Garbrandt, but Cody Garbrandt did look very patient. He did look composed against Rafael Sunsao, but I think Rafa's on this like skyrocket, right? He's on this rocket. He's on one of those SpaceX rockets, right? And it's just continuing to rise. And I think Cody Garbrandt's gonna get like lured into like these exchanges. And he's going to get caught. And I think that's what's going to happen. Both of you guys have knockout power. So we'll start with you, Chris, on this matchup, man. Cody, does he seem any different? Do you feel like he's turned a corner, or is he just the same guy, just different coaches?
Well, I thought in his last fight that he was looking a lot more patient. And when Cody looks patient, he looks phenomenal. Like I would pick him against anyone if I knew he was going to fight a patient fight and a smart fight. But I know he probably won't do that. I know he likes to brawl too much. And against Rob Font, I think he's going to get caught and Rob Font's going to get this one done. That's just my opinion on this one. I think either of these guys could catch the other one. I am half expecting to see a similar pattern to the last couple of fights of Cody's, where it gets late in one of the rounds and they just decide, all right, let's swing, and someone goes down to the ground. So I don't see this one going the distance, and I think Rob Font really puts his name out there in this fight.
Ryan, do you see this going past like the second round?
Oh, good question. No, I don't. I definitely don't see it going past the second round, but I think it could. Like, I just don't think. I think it's more likely it finishes early. Look, I had the same pick as you guys, but that's no fun. So I'm going to play devil's advocate, and I'm going to take Cody Garbrandt in this one. I think he's got too much power in his hands. We saw in that Sunsao fight, he looks improved, right? That's, if anything we could take from that fight, aside from the 1 second left knockout, he looks improved. He's more patient. He looks just as fast as always, and he's got that power that he's always had. So with those factors, on the other hand, we have seen Font finish before. He's not some incredibly durable fighter that's never been finished. So look, it's going to be a tough task for Garbrandt not to get baited into trading in the pocket, which is terrible for him. And if he does that, look, I don't think it's going to go well for him. But if he can keep composed, stay at distance, use his speed, get in and out, and throw nice shots, he gets the fight done. I will check you on one thing, John. You said about the wrestling of Cody Garbrandt. I know he's got I don't know if it's college wrestling or high school wrestling background, but the dude's no Kamaru Usman or something like that, all right? His wrestling's very basic, and I don't think it's really going to factor into this one, so.
All right. I love it. I love it, man. Sometimes I make mistakes. But yeah, I think maybe I was fooled by him being an alpha male too, you know what I mean? Because it's just stocked with wrestlers and
they do love wrestling at alpha male.
Yeah, they love wrestling. He's also been training a lot with Mark Henry, right? I think that's where he's at most of the time now. So we'll see what happens with him. Yeah, man, we've went over that 90-minute mark. I appreciate you guys coming on, man. Always gonna get you guys back on as much as possible in the future. It's a great card, I think, even though it's flying under the radar. There's a lot of good fights. So everybody, thank you guys for watching, and and continue, and make sure you hit that subscribe button and follow these guys. What do you guys, tell them where they can find you and what you're working on.
First of all, thanks for having me, John. You can find me on Twitter at Galloway_. I pretty much just do an MMA podcast weekly. It comes out on Monday morning in the States, I believe. Sounds right. Or Tuesday morning, early in the week. You can check that out on the Low Kick MMA YouTube channel. Other than that, if you follow my Twitter, it's mostly just video game stuff and things like that. So lots of fun stuff. But yeah, that's me.
All right, Chris, what about you, man? Tell us what's up with you.
I think you guys can see my Twitter handle. If not, it's just at Chris Reive, ChrisReive. Yeah, that's just the best place to find all my stuff. I talk all my shit on Twitter. Yeah, it's time for sports on YouTube. Whenever I can actually pin down someone to talk to me for 20 odd minutes, I'll throw it up on there. All just one shot, uncut, very basic interviews with fighters around the traps. So nothing too technical. And yeah, for all the writing, just look at New Zealand Herald, nzherald.co.nz. That's where most of my stuff goes, even if it does go behind a paywall. Hey, man's got to eat.
Yeah. All right, man. We all got to eat. Thank you guys. And yeah, man, catch us next week. Next week, I'm going to have Shingo from Ryzen. If you know who Shingo is, if you know Ryzen, he's the man over there. We're going to have him and most likely Drake. And we're going to talk a lot of Japanese MMA Ryzen Bantamweight Grand Prix. I've done 15 of the 16 fighters interviews for that Grand Prix. There's one left. I'm calling this guy. Come on. You guys got to get on the interview. Anyways, thank you guys so much.